Good evening. Oh, so many fans at the front. Welcome to Broadway. My name is Sophia Ramcharan and I'm a programmer here. And I'm delighted to see you all. So again, welcome. And I want to introduce our fabulous panel. Some of you have already been introduced and you've had your photographs. And the panel will be around later if you didn't manage to get your photo. But I'd like to welcome to the stage Judith Jacob. Muhammad. And John Schmidt. So just to run through some housekeeping before we start the intros, I think you might have been handed a little form we always have to do them, it just shows how much you care about this event and how much you've enjoyed it if you did. And it also helps us to bring back events like this in the future. So be very grateful if you took a minute to fill out as much as you want to and hand it in to our usher at the end. The format of the event will be a round of introductions, some conversation. We'll play episode 1. So the episodes do not really exist in a high quality format because the archive isn't there, but we managed to track down 2 episodes. We had to go through the BFI and the BBC archive. So we'll play the first one, then we'll have a conversation, play the second one and round off. At any time, please participate. We've got a roving mic, we want to hear your comments and have it a bit interactive and just have a conversation between us all. And there might be some sound distortion because it is classed as vintage, and so if there's a bit of pop out in the sound, it's all part of the entertainment, so just bear with us. Cool, okay. Wow, what a delight. So, for those who don't know about the Real McCoy, it's a BBC sketch show that ran from 1991 to 96. And is one of the few examples of Black British life on British television that ran true. It made household names of cast members including Robbie G, Leah Mohammed, Curtis Walker, Llewellyn Gideon, and the late Felix Dexter, as well as our John Schmidt and Judith Jacob, who's on the stage with us today. And guest stars included the likes of Ian Wright, Maxi Priest, Lennox Lewis, Soul to Soul, River Turner. So it really was a platform to celebrate black talent in the UK. So our first guest, Judith, there's lots to say, so I'm going to try and surmise that if you don't know already. Had a role in EastEnders as Carmel. Went on to comedy performances in the Real McCoy. Judith is a writer, theatre performer, as well as being on TV. Co-founded the Black Theatre Co-op. There's so much. Yabba Yabba. Yes. You're on radio. So I'm sure, we'll elaborate on all of that later, but we're absolutely delighted to have Judith here. Leah Mohammed started his acting, this is my research on you. Started your acting career in the 90s at the Black Cat Cabaret. Is this true? Yeah? I worked with Fran Laurie and the Red Dwarf team. Was instrumental in the creation of the Real McCoy. Was a performer and wrote material, as did you did as well, didn't you? You wrote material for the Real McCoy as well. And Mr. Fraser is one of the most iconic characters that he created. So we'll expand on that. And then John Simmit, actor and comedian, has a very famous role on BBC as a Teletubby. Oh yes, that is international. I mean, it's amazing how many countries that roles and plays in, and was also on the Real McCoy, and is one of the country's leading comedy promoters in terms of live shows. And again, we'll hear more about your work in a bit, so thank you. Another round of applause for that. I could talk for an hour about the achievements, but we've got to crack on with the show. So the first question is, let's start with the Real McCoy, because that's why we're here. How did you all get involved in the Real McCoy?
Well, I came in later, so the Real McCoy, I came in the third year, so Leo was there from the onset of Real McCoy, so maybe we should let you have a word on that.
Okay, well, first of all, good evening to everybody. How are you all doing? Thank you all for coming out. Well, basically, in the early 90s, I was doing stand-up comedy. The black comedy circuit was just being established. And I think there was a gap in the BBC for some type of black programming. And Charlie Hanson, who was one of the producers behind programs like Desmond's and other black sitcoms.
No problem.
No problem. He and a number of other people decided that they wanted to do something on the BBC, and so they came and they were headhunting, looking for performers in the black community. They came and watched one of my performances. I was invited to come and have a conversation with them at the BBC, and I went and we sat down and they talked about an idea that they had for a black comedy sketch show. I remember asking Charlie Hanson, what's the idea? What were you thinking of calling it? And he said, Flick. And I said, what do you mean flick? He said, when black people do that with their fingers, kind of thing. I mean, there wasn't a really great developed idea at the time. Later on, when we began working on the actual program, I was studying at the time a black inventor by the name of Elijah McCoy. And Elijah McCoy, he's the man who's responsible for us looking neat and tidy tonight, because he invented the ironing board. He invented a device called a drip cup, which is the device which enables engines to be continuously oiled whilst they're working. Before that invention, machinery had to be turned off to be oiled, and so production would be lost. So he's a very important inventor, and his stuff was so good that when people inquired about it, they would say, is it the Real McCoy? And so I suggested to the BBC that this could be the title of the show, and they hummed and hawed a little bit, not sure. Then they came back about 3 weeks later and said, yeah, and that's how we became the Real McCoy. That's how I got involved. I came on board. Initially, they were trying to build a program around Curtis and Ishmael, who were two up-and-coming stand-ups at the time. Unfortunately, Ishmael got into a little bit of trouble, and because they employed them as a double act, and Ishmael kind of fell out, that idea kind of got lost, and so they brought myself in, and I think Robbie...
No, you were already there.
I was already there.
You were there, but they brought in myself and Eddie Nesta. Originally, when we came in, we were only coming to do the pub scenes. There was the send-up of the EastEnders set that was going on. So we came in to do that. And I think one time Mira wasn't well, and you lot were doing, was the Irish Moss song? And was asked if I would do it, and I was like, oh wow, they're giving me something else to do. Woo, woo. I'm really going up this thing. And so then they started involving me in sketches. So we weren't just there to be on periphery. We ended up being part of the show.
So at which point did you start actually creating and writing?
But what was interesting about the writing process is because people wrote, people sent stuff in, and Leo and Mira done a lot of writing. And it would be put on the table and we'd read it. And if nobody laughed, it wasn't in. It was funny, it was very harsh, but what was funny was what did get in. Because it was politically on the edge.
I mean, right from the beginning, I wanted to write, because to be completely honest with you, I've always had a kind of ulterior motive for doing what I do. I'm not just, I didn't have a desire to just be an entertainer or to just be on TV, and that just wasn't my motivation. I'm trying to get a message. I'm trying to make people laugh, but at the same time, I want them to be nodding and saying, that's true, you know. So that was my motivation. I wanted it to be family orientated. I wanted it to be something that your grandmother could watch and your children could watch. I didn't want to be involved in anything smutty and low down and filthy. And so from the very outset, I really started to write stuff. And there were lots of other writers sending stuff in, and a lot of the stuff just wasn't, in my humble opinion, appropriate for the type of show we wanted. And so ultimately, I just used to write a whole heap of stuff to try to overpower some of the other stuff that was there. And I think it worked to some degree. And some
it was
stuff
amazing. NYPD is one of the ones that I will always remember, because it was just at the time Rodney King got beaten up. We'd done a version of it, You've Been Tangoed, because somebody picked their nose. But it was you wrote that one, didn't you? Yeah. And it was everybody knew what it was. And it was just so raw, what had just been happening, we just seen. Then we had this whole thing about LPT, You Being Tangoed. But it was like, whoa, you've done that? That was really on the edge, but funny. And as long as you're laughing, it's getting in. And it did get in.
So John, you did a lot of the sort of...
Oh, no, go on, clap.
So John, you started off, tell us how you started off with Real McCoy.
I was doing stand-up. This very cinema was my first gig outside of Birmingham. Me and Peter Honeygale were here.
Peter Honeygale?
When about
Broadway.
1991, there was about 40 people in the room, plus me and Peter Honeygale. I've been doing stand-up for about a couple of years. Met these guys. I was watching, as you do as a stand-up. You go to watch the shows, you think, I can do that, you know, because I used to play sound system. The days of one turntable. So I used to chat between, do your jokes and all. Anyway, I saw these guys. I knew Judith because I was already doing marketing. I was working at an art centre in Birmingham, doing the marketing, and they brought these guys to do a comedy show, and I volunteered my services to say, oh, can I host the show? The show was a success, not because of me, but because of this lot. So it became a regular club. So I got a monthly gig in Birmingham to learn your craft. Anyway, about a year, literally only 18 months later, the Real McCoy had come along, and Series 2, I was asked to come and become the warm-up person, which I was that green. I was so happy to be involved. It was the first two series were done in Pebble Mill Studios in Birmingham, which is no longer there. So I joined halfway through Series 2 as a warm-up person, so I was there for nearly almost from halfway through Series 2 till the very end. I made it my own job, and what these guys will tell you is, it was, particularly when it moved to London and found its feet in Series 3, we're in a 300-seat studio at BBC White City. Ram jam every week. You'll see some of the little bits when you occasionally see the audience. There was no canned laughter. That studio audience would ruin takes sometimes with their laughter. I'd be happy to go on and say, please laugh the same way. You know, something's gone wrong, someone forgot a line or something technical gone wrong. And they'd be laughing so hard. People say, is that canned? I said, no, that's like one of the best gigs you get for 6 weeks. So I became the warm-up. And then in Series 4 of the 5, they decided to give debuts, which I'm very, very, to this day, grateful for, to stand up. So myself, Richard Blackwood, Angela Marr, Amber Powell, Roger D, Jeff Schumann, we all, I mean, that's testament to the show. That gave us our TV debut. So not only was I the warm-up and there for every episode from halfway through Series 2, I also made my debut on it. So, you know what? And it's a show that keeps on giving. That's how I got involved anyway.
Funny you mentioned about that. He's talking about the canned laughter. Of course we all remember Mr. Fraser, right? We had to do loads of takes on it so the laughter can get less. Because it just was like, people would assume it was canned laughter. It was ridiculous. The moment we had the reveal on Leo, and then they said, oh, let's do another take. And let's do another take. And I don't think they ever realised it was, they never lost the funny of what they were watching. It was pointless. Take 10 would have been same laughter as take 1. Just let it go. That's how they're going to laugh. It's done.
And since the Real McCoy has not been on the television, I've been going up and down the country doing Mr. Fraser, and Mr. Fraser has been paying my rent for many, many years. Now, but the funny thing is, you get children. There's children in different, like community centres or schools or whatever. And over the years, these children, they want to see Mr. Fraser. And then Mr. Fraser shows up and they start crying.
Brilliant. Do you have any questions at this point from the audience? We do have a mic somewhere. Any questions or comments? We've got a lady at the front. Sorry, do you mind waiting for the mic? Just so...
Just slowly. You've talked about your writing process. Is it just you sitting down with a piece of paper? Is it... I'd like to know how you start to write comedy.
Yeah, initially I didn't really have much of a clue as to the format, but in all cinematic writing, television writing, there is a particular format. There is a way in which you have to do it in order for it to be acceptable to TV or film or whatever. So, it's a very basic type of thing where you write on one side of the paper and the other side is left for, comments or notes or whatever. And it's in a particular form. And I learned that, I found out how to do that, so I began writing at home. Then I would bring my sketches in, and I would have to write something like 30, 35 sketches in order to maybe get 10 in. Because one of the things that would happen at the BBC, especially with some of the stuff I wrote, is that the powers that be at the BBC would look me in my face and say, "But it's not funny, Leo." And I would say, "Yes, it is." And the proof of the pudding would be when we did the show in front of the live audience and the place was just exploding. And then they would stand there saying, "Oh, okay, then, yeah, we understand." I was standing in the wings one day when we were filming, when I wasn't in the sketch, and Bruce Forsyth came in, and he was standing there next to me, and Bruce Forsyth said, "I would pay money for an audience like this." Because our audiences, we didn't have to prompt our audiences. They got it, and it was phenomenal.
I think we've got time for maybe one or two more questions before we play the first episode. There's someone there, there's somebody at the back, I think. Jackie P. Jackie P. I see you.
I should put my glasses on and I can see people's hands.
Hi guys.
Hi.
Hello over here. I know it's dark, but... So I was just wondering, why did the Real McCoy stop on the BBC? And also, do you think there is room for something very similar, or could it come back?
Okay, well, why it stopped, I don't know. Leo may be able to answer that question. But for the room for other things, there is stuff that's happening at the moment. It is on late at night. Famalam was on, and I enjoyed Famalam. And sketches are hitting this. It's not the Real McCoy, but it's young people with their voices saying what they're saying. So, let's support them. They're doing their thing. Famalam. But there is obviously a gap, henceforth why. I didn't realise till Leo told me today, 1995 was the last time Real McCoy was on. Did you know it was that long ago? No, exactly. And yet people are here, still talking about the Real McCoy. We get stopped on the street every time, still talking about the Real McCoy. So obviously there is a gap. But why it's not on, maybe Leo can answer that.
Yeah, when I told the cameraman this evening, the last time it was on TV, the brother said, "But I wasn't even born then." Which is incredible. But to be completely honest with you again, it's, that question is a question that's been asked by untold amounts of people, including newspapers like New Nation when it was around, The Voice newspaper and others. Have gone to the BBC and said, "Why did you take this programme off? What was the reason?" And to this day, nobody has ever been given a definitive answer from the BBC, which tells me that it was political. And what do I mean by that? It's unfortunate, but we still live in a world where Everybody else is entitled to have their politics, to, you know, talk about their reality, their culture, whatever. But somehow when black people do it, it becomes a problem. It becomes a problem. That's the reality. And I think in the Real McCoy, we created a little bit of a battle in the BBC in that there were people like Charlie Hanson, white man, who genuinely, I believe, wanted that show and, you know, promoted it, and there were other people who supported it and whatever. But I think at the higher levels at the BBC, I think once we found our feet and we began to really, you know, put that stuff into the sketches, they said, uh-oh, we don't want this. And then it became a bit of a to and fro, because lots of strange things happened whilst we were doing the Real McCoy. They would change the transmission time halfway through a series, which you just don't do. According to the viewing figures that we were getting, there were like something like 2 million people watching the show. And what they said was that any other show getting those kind of viewing figures immediately would have moved from BBC 2 to BBC 1. Lots of money would have been pumped in. There would have been so much, you know, but it just didn't happen with the Real McCoy. So, you know, again, I think there was some political games being played there, hence why it's not. As far as anything like the Real McCoy coming along for the future, certainly we have the talent. Certainly we got people who do cameras, we've got people who do lights, we've got people who are actors, we've got people who are comedians. We got the skills, we've got the talent within the black community. But please do not hold your breath waiting for the BBC, Channel 4 or any of the mainstream media to do this for us. This is something we must do for ourselves.
I would add to that, you know, like it's rightly been said, 1995, last episode, yet it's still relevant because it's one of the few things produced by British TV that rings true to you guys. You're the ones who are sharing it on YouTube and sending WhatsApp clips and filling out these bits while we've been doing this sort of thing. And of course there's a demand for it. There's always a demand for a comedic reflection of what real life is about. But to give the younger performers their due, they're doing it online anyway. They're recording themselves and putting it out there. You know what I mean? People like your Ori Stylers, your Judy Loves and others of a newer generation, they're not waiting for the BBC anymore. Because if you wait for the BBC, you're going to be very old, very, very tired and very grey. Because you've seen what they produce, some of the stuff. I'm not disrespecting any performers, that's not what I'm about. But some of what you see on Channel 4, which uses talent, you think, that's clearly we're not producing that. This show was produced using the performers' talents, writing, performing, etc. The other shows today still remind me of, okay, you just got these people to front the show, and the flick thing Leo described. Those conversations when, that's probably why the show is not on as well, because these people are not easy to work with, you know. And what I mean by that is these people stand up for themselves and for you lot, whereas some people are just glad to, understandable, to get the check. No, you know, so they will stay on air longer, whereas it's like, well, that's not true. We're not going to do that. I mean, Leo will talk more about it later on and so on, but when you get black performers who get behind the lines, as I call it, at the BBC, and will say no to stuff that they'll ring true, that seems derogatory, you know, it's just amazing it went to 5 series under those conditions. You know what I mean? Normally it's like, them too troublesome, let's get somebody who smile on that. And trust me, this one can be troublesome.
Okay, well, let's explore some of those after we watch the first episode. Wow, that was so funny still. It hasn't dated at all. So you've presumably, done a few of these events, haven't you? The retrospective events. What does it, to be in the audience and hear the reaction again, and to see it on a big screen, what does that, what does that feel like?
Well, for me, it wasn't the reaction, just my own reaction. I thought it was very funny. It was just, I was watching it like the first time. I hadn't seen it for so long, and I was like, oh, I know that sketch. Oh, I know that sketch. It's funny. I was busting up down there like I'd never seen it before.
Absolutely, it's incredible how it just still. I was at the back roaring.
It's a studio audience because I was a warm-up person. You see how big, as a 300-strong audience, and you're there for 2.5 hours on as the warm-up person, and you've seen the rehearsal, so you know what some of the sketches are like. So as you saw when Felix, R.I.P., was on the screen, that's what we're alluding to before. There's no canned laughter. All you're seeing there is the studio audience having a good time, and those tickets, even though they were free, were hard to come by. You could have sold them, trust me.
The energy, it seems like the energy, not only with the audience but with the collaborative, was just so positive and organic. Do you think that helped to the success of the sketch show, in that the audience radiated back what you were sort of putting out in terms of positivity?
Yes, it was interesting because the team of us who were part of the Real McCoy, we really did work well together. There were no real, like sometimes when you're a group of performers together, there's a lot of egos and stuff like that, and but generally I think we really gelled. And over the first series, the initial series wasn't that great. We were really just finding our feet. But once we went into series 2, 3, 4, we really came together as a cast, and we had a lot of fun. As Judith said, when the sketches, we would all sit at a big table. The sketches would all be on the table, and then we would basically go around and we would choose who was going to read what. And we would be falling on the floor, man, And then, because Judith was such a troublemaker...
He was going to say that.
we spent a lot of time just trying to keep her in check. You know what I mean? So we had to tape her up one day.
He's so out of order.
What did you do?
Nothing, right? I'm just playing. Because they think that they're Monday and that you can't do things. So I do exactly what they tell me I mustn't do. How dare they? And so then, because I'm doing what they tell me I shouldn't do, then they want to hold me down. And he's not lying when he said they wrapped my hands, they wrapped my feet with tape.
Taped her up, man. Taped her up and left her in one of the rehearsal rooms over lunch, just to calm her down.
And what you remember?
It wasn't the most politically correct thing that we did.
Think of some of the favourite comedies, just full stop, British culture, Fools and Horses. That got to series 3 before it got that good. We all remember Del Boy falling through the counter, all the classics, The Light. But remember, that wasn't series 1. Anything creative needs time to get together. People, whatever the artists, people find their feet. So this is one of the rare examples of a black show being given time to get better, and then finding their writing and finding their performing feet and so on. So I would say Dad's Army, the same thing. Stepped on someone, I'm that old, I remember that. That wasn't a hit straight out the back, but people could say, well, there's something there. Give it time for the team to get it together. So this is what you're seeing why I go from series 3 here. Give them some time to learn their stuff and get, iron out some of the kinks.
Brilliant, thank you. Any questions from the audience?
In terms of copyright and any legality, is there any chance about maybe you can negotiate, I don't know if you tried, about getting a DVD, the series put on DVD? I don't know about how copyright.
I mean that question has been put to the BBC so many times, and they've never put it out on. I think they did one series, was it?
Series 3, a 1-hour compilation on VHS. That's how long ago. Never on DVD.
So that's how long ago that was. But nothing has ever been done. They don't appear to want to do anything. It's been suggested on numerous occasions that they should put it on DVD or whatever. Again, nothing has happened. According to the information I've received, at least one Caribbean country wanted to buy the entire thing so that they could show it on the island and in other places or whatever. And apparently they said the BBC priced it so high that it was impossible for that country to buy it. I know that they did send some bits and pieces to America, but nothing really definitive or nothing concrete in terms of putting the thing out so that people could access it. It's just not happened. At one stage they said they were going to put it on their online platform so that people could access it like that and pay a little sum to be able to watch the stuff, download it and watch it, but 6 weeks into that proposition, it collapsed. I don't know what happened.
Pay for it on the iPlayer?
We were told it was
something like that.
The BBC's version
platform,
of iTunes. I didn't know they had one of those. But the BBC apparently has a version of iTunes, or was supposed to. So whatever you want to get, like I said, I've stepped on anything like that. You could buy the episode, download it, and own it. And they talked about that because even us who'd just been a couple of episodes, one episode, we would yeah, well, sure, let us know. And I didn't even know it hadn't happened. I thought that this is going back just 4 years ago. So we're getting all excited.
I signed the document to say that I gave permission for them to be able to do that because we would then also get some revenue from that, but nothing happened about that. So we don't know, again, politically we don't know what's going on behind the scenes and why somebody is saying one thing and then somebody else is blocking it.
So 2 questions that I have. Is it true that the masters, they don't exist?
I don't know if that is true. I know that it's a good line to use because with No Problem they said exactly the same thing, that we couldn't get them because they'd lost it.
Yeah.
However, Malcolm Frederick's son was working at LWT and he went, oh, guess what I've just found? All of the No Problems that they said didn't exist. So technically he could have taken them all because they wouldn't have known it wasn't there because apparently it wasn't there anyway. So I'm not going to say anything more about that.
So the rumour that's gone around that all of the masters have disappeared or they were wiped or something like that, that is impossible. It does not happen. You know, one thing about television and things of this nature is that this is history, this is archive stuff, and even if you don't like it and you don't want it to be aired, you don't destroy it. They keep everything. Everything is kept, and so I can guarantee you that stuff is gathering dust somewhere in the bowels of the BBC.
I bet you if Leo was to do something very uncharacteristic to him and it became a newspaper, they will find them episodes and show this is the man that done it. They will find it.
Question.
When I say VHS, I still have them in my home right now.
It's people like you, which is why it's on YouTube, because it's public saying we like this, we put it out there and so on. So you become, in a good way, almost like an irritant to them going, when are you going to put it on? And they go, what show? Because remember, the people who are BBC now probably weren't even there then. And you talk about some black show from 20 years ago. But, we have to remain an irritant saying, look at the YouTube figures, do something with it. And also, there's some revenue to be made for the BBC. Put the thing together and put it out. People will buy it if you make it available.
We had another question at the front.
I had the privilege of meeting Felix Dexter while he was still alive, and obviously he died a few years ago, untimely and so tragic. 2 questions. The first is, how did he get involved with the Real McCoy? Was he was he part of the writing as well? And second is, did anybody have any, anybody on the panel have any involvement with him until the end?
Okay, well, no, Felix was a separate entity. I didn't even know Felix was in the show until we'd done a producer's run. I was like, who's he? And then he came in. I didn't know who Felix was. I used to watch him in the theatre when he was performing, but I didn't know he was part of the Real McCoy. So he didn't write for anybody else except for himself. That's what his contribution was on the show, because he was his own entity.
I noticed on the credits it said "and Felix Dexter." He's sort of separate. What's the reason behind it?
Yeah, so Felix was one of the performers who was a stand-up who, I don't like the term, but he was so-called crossover comedian who was doing a lot of the white circuit at the time. And Felix was brilliant. He was a consummate professional at what he did. And at a certain point in time, I think it was Judith, what's the sister's name, who was on the show with us, the first one? One of the producers.
Paulette Randall.
Paulette Randall, and also our former director, Terry Jervis. I think they knew Felix. And they felt that he could play a role. So they brought Felix in to write a particular monologue for each episode, and Felix would come in and do that monologue, and we would interact. I interacted with him big time. I gave him some books and stuff. One of the sketches, when you see him doing one of his monologue, you'll see him reading Dr. Francis Cress Welsing's ISIS papers. I gave him the book to kind of like just have that up front as he read. And, Felix was very good like that. He would come in, he would do his thing, and then he would go. And then, that would become a major part of each episode. He would do the Nathaniel, he would do the conductor, he worked for London Underground.
And Brother Jeffers, the pastor.
Brother Jeffers. The death of Felix is very tragic because I would work with him on a fairly regular basis doing stand-up. We would be around the country together doing stuff. And on one of the last occasions when I worked with him on the stage, or should have worked with him on the stage, when I got to the theatre, they said that Felix wouldn't arrive because he was ill. They said he had a cold or something like that. So, okay, I thought, okay, well, you know, we went on, the show went on, whatever. And then I was at home one day and I got a phone call to say that my name was one of 12 names on a list that had been compiled by Felix, and that he needed to see myself because he was in a hospice dying. And I was shocked. And so when I got to the hospice, Felix was basically in a very bad way. And that's the first time I knew about this cancer. And the day when he actually passed, I went to the hospice, I think 3 times to see him. And on the day when he actually passed, I was with him about 30 minutes before he actually passed. And one of the things I was saying to him, he couldn't speak at the time, he was basically in a coma. But I was talking to him regardless of that situation. And what I was saying to Felix was that I was very disappointed, in truth, because I wished that he had reached out and that he would have told us that he was ill, because I'm a firm believer that if you put it out into the universe, someone or something will resonate with that desire for a cure or for healing or whatever, and something possibly could have done. Because Felix was a relatively young man, and I felt it was a real tragedy that Felix passed in that way. But he was a very private person, and after he passed, we discovered all kinds of stuff about Felix, all these different names and all his different girlfriends
as well. Yeah, there's an example. For instance, I was just going to. There was a show. To answer your question, we did stand up a lot all over the country, put him on all over the place, and there was just one show, the same thing, he couldn't make because he had a bad back. Okay, fine. And then he rang the promoter and then left a message with us. Some extra promoter knows to replace me because I can't make the show. Then got another comedian, she's up there, a former member of the cast. It was a very strange period, 2013. Colette Johnson was in the first 2 series. Colette passed away. And we'd gone to the funeral on the Friday, also of cancer. And then Angela Marr rings me, so we've been to the funeral, so we're in shock on a Friday, having been to a colleague's funeral, not even knowing she was ill. Angela Marr rings me on a Tuesday saying, because everybody thinks because I run Upfront comedy, I must know everything. What about Felix? I said, what do you mean? And Angie says to me, I've heard he's in a hospice. I said, really? I said, I'll try and find out discreetly, because like Leo says, Judith, Felix was very, very private. So I cut a long story short, I found the number of the person who left the message, and shock. And we were trying to keep it quiet, because obviously it's your friend, but respect his privacy. You know, you don't want it to be some sort of tacky story of someone being ill. Anyway, cut a long story short, went to see him. I was given a message. Eddie Nestor, who was on a couple of these panels, so we've seen on the thing, he says, let a few people know. So I went and saw him, but Eddie will tell the story, because I wasn't there at that time. There were 3 former and maybe current partners of his from different stages of his long and varied love life looking after him. Among other people, the visitors, obviously very somber, but they're joking. These like, coming in there to raise the spirits. I'm not good at that. I'll just have to sit there biting my bottom lip. You know what I mean? That sort of situation, seeing your friend really ill. But Eddie Nestor asked him to say, whispering. Remember, Felix now on his deathbed, morphine, everything. He says, these former partners of yours, do they ever compare dates? This is Felix on his death, typical Eddie Nestor will say, they ever compare dates to see if there's any crossover? And Felix on his deathbed said to him, yeah, but every time that sort of comes up, I suddenly go, ah! God's honest truth, man on his deathbed. That's the sort of humour from the hospice. There's one little one you can keep. Sad but very true.
He's missed. I think let's do a round of applause for him. Do we have any more questions before we run that? We have one.
I'm an 80s baby, so when it came out, I wasn't that old. And I got a lot of the jokes, but some of them I didn't get, obviously, because it was aimed at older crowd. For me, it was so refreshing to see black Asian people on TV, because it was Desmond's, it was not a lot. So our family looked forward to the Real McCoy. So it was like, the Real McCoy's on, and everybody let everybody know, we watched it together as a family. My question is, did you aim at a specific age, or was it, did you aim at a specific type of people or anything?
I don't think it was aimed at particular. It was about our experiences. So maybe it would be our age group. It was probably, but I don't think it was. I think what Leo said before about it being accessible to family. That was the remit. So that a whole family can sit and watch it. But I don't think we ever thought, we aim it for 40 years or 30-year-olds or stuff. It was the humour came out of the reality of life that was happening around us.
And then what we also did, and what was a clear decision that we made, because again, maybe it's not really known or appreciated that before the Real McCoy, like say for instance, a lot of the Lenny Henry stuff and that. And by the way, Lenny, in the early days, Lenny came on board and he was very, very helpful to all of us. He would be there, he would assist and try to help us, to maneuver within the space of the BBC in terms of certain things. And also when we first went to makeup, the only wigs that they had for black people there, all were former Lenny Henry wigs. So we had to sort that out. The girls had to sort out black makeup. They didn't know what to do with us and whatever. But what was the point I was going to make? It's ridiculous, and I'm getting old.
The audience.
Yes, no, well, the age group thing, it was for family. But in terms of the black expression, a decision was made that we wanted this to be authentically black. No question about it. We weren't trying to tone down accents to make everybody understand. Because if you see, this is the thing, this thing trying to please everybody, you please nobody. And so what we decided was that we really wanted it to be an authentically black voice. And that way, the amount of white people that come up to me and say they love that show. Because if the thing is genuine, everybody will tune in because they want to know, well, what's this about? If it's real. But if it's toned down to the degree where you're trying to make everybody love it, this is not going to work. So that was one of the reasons I think the Real McCoy kind of stood out in history, because we really tried to make it real to us.
That's it, really. If you guys go to one of your comedy clubs, Glee Club, Nottingham Playhouse, Just a Tonic, doing sketches or stand-up, the biggest pressure, just try to make it funny. That's enough. You can't say, right, I'm going to try and make this cool for 17-year-olds or 34-year-olds or black people or white people or Asian people. Whoever's there, as long as you can make it, like they said, funny and truthful, after that, you've succeeded. And that's enough of a challenge. No mind saying, I hope people between the ages of 40 and 50 get... You can't do that. That's hard enough. I hope whoever's there find this funny and it reflects truth. Because we don't tell jokes. Stand-up is not about saying an Englishman, an Irishman and a Welshman. Those days gone. It's about talking about what you're doing. And if the audience finds that funny, I think that's true. You don't have to experience it, but if it rings true, then you laugh, and that's enough of a challenge.
Yeah, I'm just thinking to myself, it's nice to reminisce and talk about, what we used to watch and everything, but I'm sitting there thinking, well, why can't... I know you're all doing your individual things at the moment, but why can't you all get together collectively and do something and bring it to the theatre for the audience, for the community? Yeah? Just a minute. All we've got at the moment is Big Nasty on TV. Come on, we can do better than that.
I alluded to that because I'm not about knocking people, but I'm saying exactly that. Also, I was referring to that show when I said, you can tell it's not us at the helm creatively making some of the shows, but I haven't got anything. I've got a date, Nottingham Playhouse. It's a few months away, but June 29th of Sunday, there's a next Upfront comedy show at Nottingham Playhouse. The lineup will be announced shortly, but there's another date, 6 months' time. It's in the diary.
Very good.
What you've just said, though, about people have done the Real McCoy on stage a few times, but mainly London. We've come out of London for a little bit, like Bristol. Some people have booked us and taken us out. But yeah, people, that's the way to do it. What you've just said is the way to do it, is to just get together and put it on.
Absolutely. So we take a question from Percy.
Yes, that's right, yeah. Was there ever a time where you and the production team came to bumps because what you did was too on the edge or too controversial?
Yeah, as I said before, well, I'll give you an example. I wrote a sketch and it was about a brain, a second-hand brain shop, and the African brain was the most expensive brain, and the punchline, the joke at the end of it was basically it was the most expensive brain because it was the least used. Okay, and it was fantastic. We filmed it. It looked a bit like Star Trek. It was very modern, and this second-hand brain shop was a very modern. Everybody's wearing white, and it was really something like out of space, sci-fi. Yeah, and they filmed it and everything. And there's this very expensive business when you're doing television, and I think something like that would have been in excess of $5,000 or something like that. And I remember being very excited about that particular sketch. And I remember, because I'm like you yourselves, the audience, even though I'm in it, I'm rushing home to watch the latest episode of The Real McCoy. And I remember sitting there waiting for this sketch to come on, and the sketch never came. And so when I went back to the BBC, the next week to start filming the new stuff, I said, what happened to that sketch, man? They said, oh yeah, really sorry, Leo, but it didn't make it through the cutting process. So they would film stuff costing a whole heap of money, but it would end up on the editing floor. That's how it was really hard trying to get stuff through, man. Believe me, and that happened a lot. That just wasn't a one-off. But we never ever came to any kind of real confrontations with people at the BBC. I think that the relationships that we had were pretty amicable. I think we got on very well, and even when higher ups object to maybe some of the stuff that we were writing and performing, the British attitude, they don't tell you nothing into your face. Okay, you get lots of smiles, and oh, well done, wonderful. So you'll never see the light of day.
You kind of have to grit your teeth then and get on with it, you say.
Yeah, exactly.
So in terms of the actual writing then, do you still own the rights to your writing? Is that...
It's not. I don't think you can, because it belongs to the show. It's not... I don't even know if you're allowed to take Fraser out of the road, but you do anyway.
Yeah, I am. I can do whatever I want. I would never, ever dream of asking permission from the Real McCoy for something from the BBC for something I wrote.
That tribute they did to Felix, 25, short but good in detail, literally weeks after he passed. I put that on YouTube. I'm not very tech savvy. Art Centre, I used to work at the Drum in Birmingham. I said, can you, because I've just sent you a copy, if you're in a show, to send me a DVD copy. So I said to my brethren there, can you upload this? And he uploaded it, and immediately, within minutes, because I think they've got counters, it says BBC on it. So you immediately get an objection from the BBC, and they say, we're going to check, and the thing disappears. It's reappeared, it's actually up there now. But even my set on the Real McCoy, I got that uploaded onto YouTube as well, very much younger version of myself. Same, yeah, within a couple of minutes, the BBC objected on copyright grounds. So you message back to say, well, it's me performing my own material. It's me, and I'm the one who's uploaded it. So I'm objecting to the objection. And then you don't hear, and then you get another message back to say, sorry, it's been overruled. And then months later, it just appears. So it's like, they must have so many, I mentioned the sheer volume of video. So from the matter it says BBC, they get a note and automatically object. But if they realise it's the performers themselves are, putting it up there, after a while they say, you know what, sod it, or there's nothing to be lost. But so to upload as much as you want, that's what I'm saying, it's the only way it's going to get out there.
I've got one more question from the lady in the middle, and then we'll cut to the next episode.
Thank you. It's just following on from what you've just been talking about. There was one sketch and one performance that really stood out for me as a child. Like the lady said before, I'm an 80s baby as well, so I was quite young. I must have been about 8, 9, 10, no more than about 10. And there was a sketch where you, Leo, and Robbie, and there was I think it was Nesta as well. Eddie, that's it, sorry. And you came in these black suits and big bow ties.
The original man.
And you turned up to the BNP headquarters. And I sat there like, wow.
Guess who wrote that?
As a child, that was food for thought. Like, it was funny, but you thought about every single word that was said.
We showed that in Bristol the other day.
It's an amazing, powerful sketch. And Maccabee Invasion.
Yeah.
How on earth how did you get that on the TV? Please explain to me. Because both were absolutely amazing. So it's a question, but it's also a thank you, because without those two moments in my life, certain thoughts and certain information wouldn't have been had or asked. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That was one of those sketches. The BNP office was one of the sketches. But it's not funny, Leo. I said, yes, it is. Yes, it is. We were killing ourselves just doing it. And the white guy who played the BNP guy, he was brilliant. He was a great actor. He came in, he got into the spirit of things. The police officers who were beating me in the LAPD sketch, they just wouldn't do it. I'm saying, lick me. They go, I wanted the thing to look real and authentic, but they were not that great. But no, it was good. And, again, that's the point. Everybody has their politics, everybody has their history. I think it's important that as a people, we stop being embarrassed to tell truth and laugh at the reality of those things. And so that's, everything I did on there was designed to provoke that type of thinking, that type of thought process, because I think it's very, very important. Because the reality is that we're in 2019, but black people in the UK are still in a terrible, terrible condition. Because we are the only people in the UK who refuse to do what other people take for granted. The Chinese take it for granted that they must have something that they can call their own, even though they're in Britain. So in every major city in this country, there's a Chinatown. Asian people do the same. Everybody does it, but we are somehow embarrassed to think that black people should have something that we can call our own. And we've fallen for this idea that the only way we can make progress is to integrate ourselves out of ourselves. It's never, ever going to work.
That's where urban comes from, isn't it? That's where the word urban comes from, to start as a watering down. It's not black music, it's urban music. It's urban culture. Excuse me. Don't get this stuff.
Well, time's pressing, so let's crack on with some more joke. Yay! As you can see, that is the archive. That is what exists with the BFI and the BBC. This version came directly from the BBC. So it's a crying shame, really, isn't it?
Just say thank God for YouTube then, because obviously that's kept you see. It has the volume, the video, the sound on the YouTube upload.
So there we go.
That's a revelation. That's an eye-opener, because I didn't know that. Like yourselves, you're thinking, what's going on with the sound? This is the BBC's official copy.
It's also been dubbed on. That misery, that music is proper dubbed on top of it. They even started mixing it when Leo was speaking.
So it's like the BBC need to go to YouTube themselves to reclaim their own show.
No, it's like 60 seconds is so painful and in silence, isn't it? I'll throw it back to the audience. Do you have any reflections or questions with this our final segment? So please take the opportunity. We have a question to my right, to my left, your right.
I'm so glad you showed... Good evening, first of all, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you for doing this tonight. I'm so glad you showed a sketch about the Caribbean takeaway food shop. I love it. Because it's so real. Like you're saying, you wanted to do real stuff.
Misery.
Trust me. I mean, it's the whole attitude, the customer service, that just doesn't exist.
It's amazing, isn't it? We used to go to a place, Scandals. We used to go to a place, Scandals, to go get our lunch. And I swear, I thought like we were invading them. We'd stand there, and of course, I don't do, give me up. Yo, I don't do that. So I'm standing there, and we're all standing there. Man coming, yo, give me up. Am I not standing here? And I have to sack myself up. Can I have over that, please? Thank you. It's horrible.
Judith, are you calling any names? Are you going to call any names?
The place is called Scandal.
Okay.
That's where we used to go. The food was delicious, but the attitude stunk.
But isn't it a strange thing to jump across there? Wherever you've gone, from the sound system days to years up and doing stand-up, it doesn't matter. Nottingham, Leeds, Bristol, London, Manchester. We can all relate,
I've listened.
But true.
And then also, part of the reason for writing those types of sketches wasn't just to reflect the so-called reality of that, but it was almost as if one of the purposes of writing that was to make sure that those proprietors, they see that and maybe would reflect on the fact that there needs to be change. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And that's all, I'm done. I was just like saying, all these years later, and lo and behold, we're still seeing the same things. I don't know.
Do you even need words?
But thanks for doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions?
There's a thing with that as well. There's a hand there. Even now, innit, you know, can I have a stew chicken? That done. Can I have a beef patty? That done. What's the point of having the board?
Good evening, and thank you very much, like the gentleman said, for putting this all together and coming over to Nottingham and talk to us and share your experience with us. My question is to do with the future and what you guys have been doing since the Real McCoy. Another question was, has anybody from America approached you when this ended at all to do something from America?
Say that again. Anybody from America what?
Any American production companies approached the Real McCoy team to produce something similar to that, or in the Caribbean?
No, because they've got their own. And if you think of the British acts just across who've done their stuff, whether it's an Idris Elba. Idris Elba went to America. Lots of the comedians I know remember him on the door of the Comedy Store in New York. Idris Elba didn't get where he got overnight. He was a doorman at the Comedy Store. So that's, remember that English guy? You know, Gina Yashere has been in America for 12 years this year. Me, her and Curtis Walker went to do a festival in 2007. And she just moved out there, and she's a force of nature. The point is, as is often the case, the system is not set up for us, so the people we're talking about have gone out there as individuals and kicked doors down. You know, I don't know if that answers your question, but
I think also there was no effort made to do that. Like, there was no effort to try to keep us going. But Dane Baptiste has done a show here. I don't know if you know the show that he's done here.
Sonny D.
Yeah, and that is in talks for them to do it in America, for them to do it.
It's commissioned.
Yeah, so
Wayans have commissioned.
But what I'm saying is there was an effort done for that. There was no effort. I mean, they didn't even keep it on the telly, so I don't see why they would have brought it over. So no, it would have to come from the powers that be, because they will respect another entity like the BBC coming and saying, look, this is what we've got, what do you think about it? And then they would have gone, yeah, because if they'd done it when it was hot, they would have definitely taken it. But they didn't.
And to expand on that, Gina Yashere's logic for moving to America was going back to another comedian from our circuit. She's still around, Jocelyn G. Jocelyn is another talented comedian of Nigerian heritage. Gina's logic was when Jocelyn got her series many years ago, Little Miss Jocelyn, Gina, at the time in dressing room, said, I'm going to America. Why? Well, there's only one Nigerian comedian on TV. There will not be two. And that's a cynical, I mean, it's paid off. Gina Yashere's got 3 specials right now on Netflix. And it's only because she went to America, and not only that, she recorded 2 of them herself.
I was about to say that. That's important to say that she used her own money.
Yeah, Trevor Etienne, a good friend of mine, he had to leave, go to the States to get some work. I mean, it's pretty difficult here, unless, of course, as I said, we begin to recognise that we do have the talent, we do have the skills. We just need to come together and realise that we can actually do this thing ourselves. We can do it, but we cannot expect somebody else to do for us that which we have the ability to do for ourselves. And just like with rap, when rap, began, a lot of the rappers, they were making their own CDs and selling them out the boot of their cars or whatever. And eventually what happened was that the big companies, they saw what was going on, they realised that this was a hot thing, and they all jumped on board, and ultimately they steered it in a different direction. But the reality is that that's how you authenticate yourself, by doing it yourself, and then ultimately those mainstream powers that be, whatever, they will jump on board because they don't want to be left out.
But that's what's happened with No Problem. Because Black Theatre Cart was doing lots of productions in theatres and was selling out because we wanted to see ourselves in the theatre, so people were coming to see it. And that's when London Weekend Television came to Black Theatre Co-op to devise No Problem, because of the strength of what we were doing out in the theatre. So, yeah.
I mean, it's true to say No Problem was it the first sitcom on
No,
Channel
I think
4?
the Fosters
was first. Channel
we
4.
opened Channel 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when Channel 4 was very new. So when at that time.
I read that.
So yeah, we opened it, we came out with it. It was going to be on LWT because they were the ones that came to us. But then because Channel 4 was this whole diverse, can we show all this different stuff, which is obviously they've forgotten all about that now. But that was what their remit was when they came out, Channel 4.
Yeah, amazing. We've got time for a few more questions before we wrap up, so please don't be shy.
There's one over there. Just to your left.
Yeah, so...
Thank you. I just want to say, like, I'm a 70s baby, sort of, Justin. So when Real McCoy came on, I was in, like, year 8 at school, so from, like, 1 to year 8. And it was instrumental, having a black programme, comedy, that spoke from our perspective to form my identity, being proud of being black, growing up. So to this day, I still talk about the show, I tell people about it, and I get a lot of encouragement from watching the old shows and stuff. But in terms of moving forward, you guys have got a lot of experience. Do you guys do like workshops and like sort of, especially the business side of things, to like kind of push this kind of thing forward?
Yeah, if you think about it, as Leo says, if the last episode of Real McCoy was 23 years ago, we're still here. We have to be doing something in the meantime.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And my point being, not being facetious at all, Rich, for instance, as I said, my first gig out of Birmingham was in this place. It was about 40, 50 people, me and Peter Honningham. I can't remember what else was on there. And yet 3 years later, we were selling out Nottingham Playhouse, simply because of the Real McCoy. They'd started to do guest spots of stand-up. So lovely to be in that position to be able to do something yourself. We filmed in May 94. I always remember dates because I've used my own money. And we were, for real, when it's your own money, you work damn hard to make sure your recollection. So we filmed in May 94, and it was going out in September 94. So I organised a tour, including Nottingham Playhouse, in October 94. And you can't pay for that sort of publicity. The days of 4 TV channels, knowing everybody's seen you. So we went in 3 years from 40 people in here to 700 plus in Nottingham Playhouse. And like I said, that's 94. We're back there in June this year. We've got another day. Haven't put the show together, but it's June the 29th. So, you know, we're still here. And that's through doing it ourselves, not waiting for someone to pick up the phone and say, please give us a gig. The theatre is booked. I hope you're all there on the 29th of June.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the future is concerned, I think John mentioned before that there are a number of young people now who are doing stuff on social media, those platforms, and, you know, I believe that the future is going to be fantastic in terms of what we're able to do as a people for ourselves, but that's the key. The key is, and I know I may sound like a stuck record, but, you know, it's all about doing it for ourselves. And I don't, you know, the Real McCoy as it was, it's not going to come back. That's not going to happen. But we need the Real McCoy for 2020. We need the equivalent of it. We need the modern, up-to-date version of the Real McCoy. And, you know, I don't have any doubt that we have the skills, we have the talents to be able to produce that. Myself and Jeff Schumann, we hook up now and then. We try to write a few things together, whatever. We've done a few plays. We did Josie and the Multicolored Weave. You missed out, man. That was so funny. That was like the first black pantomime. Really, really funny.
You know,
live on stage, as Judith said, we've actually done the Real McCoy a few times as a live show, Hackney Empire and various other places or whatever. It's possible that maybe some of the cast members may get together in the future and try and do something, but I just think that we need to put our thinking caps on and appreciate that, yeah, we can do stuff, and artists need to get together. Right now, Eddie is kind of like on radio, Robbie's doing films and different things, Judith is doing all manner of things all over the place, and everybody's busy.
Mirrors all over the place.
The Asian contingent from the Real McCoy have just gone to the stratosphere. Goodness gracious me, the Kumars, all of these, all of them have got spin-offs from the Real McCoy, but it's none of the black ones that have got anything.
Always invited to be in the show.
Okay, so that's interesting.
If they were to do a Real McCoy today, not even a Real McCoy, a sketch show today, you could cast it like that. Ori Styler, Judy Love, Kane Brown, Angela Mar's son, Travis J. The talent is there, and they're not waiting to be cast, okay? They're doing it themselves.
Well, I'm also with a group of ladies, and we've called ourselves the BB Crew, and we write, direct, and produce our own stuff. We've just done a little mini tour in London, going around the different ends around there, and we are currently, we've got 2 things going on. We've got so many ideas, and we just can't physically do it all. We started writing a play like 3 years ago, and we're still writing. We said, this needs a writer. So we've gone as far as we could. We've now given it to a writer. She's come back. So we're just going to read it again and then send it back to her. So that's happening. We've got an idea. Obviously, we all got TV ideas. They may not happen, but we're not going to not go for it. So we're working on an idea at the moment. If it isn't taken up, the idea is that we will film it ourselves and then put it out there because the idea is great. It's gonna happen whether they take it or whether we do it ourselves. But it's gonna happen.
So, do we still have a question? Would you still like to ask a question? Yeah, Joe, just at the front, the pink jacket, please.
Pink jacket.
Thank you.
Hi. It's just from a creative level. The character, Mr. Fraser, how would you even begin to put that together?
Yeah, you're right.
Well, Mr. Fraser is that's like an alter ego of Leo Muhammad. Okay, now, I'm a very serious individual. I don't even know how I'm funny. Even when I've been doing stand-up for 25 plus years, I don't feel like a funny person when I'm off stage. I don't know how it happens, but when I'm backstage waiting to go on to do a comedy show, stand up by myself, I am absolutely terrified. And then when I hit the stage, something happens, it's like magic, and I'm able to make people laugh. Now, people will come up to me on the street and it's like people expect you to be funny. I'm not funny, I'm very serious. And in interviews, I've told people, comedy is an extremely serious business. But Mr. Fraser is my opportunity to be absolutely crazy. Just to unleash. And I would literally, once I got those teeth in, and those shoes on and that outfit, I would go out on the street. I would be all over West London, the BBC, walking up and down. When we've done Fraser up here, I've gone out on the street, man, and met people and talked to people. It's a wonderful mask to be able to just let loose and have a great time. And that character is, he sustained me over many years. I like him. I don't like him, but he has been very good for Leo Muhammad. Very good for me.
Did he find a girlfriend?
They keep killing themselves.
The weird thing, that sketch where you actually committed suicide. In one of the sketches, Mr. Fraser approaches her. She actually kills herself.
Dive off. I love that sketch. He just said, and dive off the balcony.
But I don't know what it is about the taste of black women, but them love Mr. Fraser.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any final questions or comments?
Can I just say, Angela Lamar has got a play out that everybody's talking about. Why you've got to keep remembering that people outside London want to see these things.
So please don't forget the people outside London.
Yes. It's not even down to that. You guys have got the power. Contact your local theatre. When's it coming? Sometimes, like Leo said about people putting pressure on behalf of their community, their culture. Contact your local theatre, your local comedy club. When so-and-so going to be in, they do listen, believe it or not. You know what I mean? But you have the pressure, so the performers, boy, are there for hire. You know what I mean? Give me a gig tomorrow, I'm there. How much? Yeah, I'm there. You know what I mean? But the offers have got to come in sometimes. We can only do so much ourselves, and we'll never stop doing so much ourselves. But you as the audience, you pay your tax, you pay your local council tax, you're paying for those theatres, and then sometimes for those comedy clubs. Use your power.
Okay, so on that note, let's get... My final question is, to round off, what's your favourite memory of
the Real McCoy?
Yeah.
That's a good one. I've got so many memories. Probably one of my memories would be just the fun, the stupidness of me, Robbie, Eddie, and this horrible man here trying to hold me down, and we were fighting, but not killing each other, fighting, and the debates we used to have. We had some serious debates, particularly with Michael, the boxer, Mike Tyson, when the lady went into the road, and I was like, I do that all the time. And they're like, what, you would do that? And then we had the biggest debate about why would you do that? Well, I trust people, that's why. But anyway, that's one of the rings. Thank you.
2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I don't care. I trust you. I'm naive.
One of my greatest memories, the Real McCoy. One of the most fun things that we did was there was a sketch that they had planned, and they built a set, and for some reason it couldn't happen. It was scrapped, and then we had this set that had been built, and we didn't know what we was going to do in it, so we decided to just do a quick workshop type of impro thing, and then out of that impro came the boys' night out.
Oh, that's a
Can you remember that sketch where and if you notice in that sketch we're using our real names.
Yeah.
So they're referring Robbie and Leo and whatever, but that was a completely improvised sketch, and it turned out to be one of the best sketches where when Luella left and Robbie said the eagle has flown.
Yes.
Yeah. And then, the whole rest of it unfolded. But that was one of my great memories from the Real McCoy. The fact that we could workshop things, make things happen, we could really do it together as a group, as a community.
2 things was, it was 6 weeks for 4 years, so obviously working throughout the year doing live stand-up, but the BBC, well, you hope they're going to call you, and they call me every year to come back to the warm-up. But that studio audience you saw there, to work in front of them for that time was a pleasure, because you're getting so much validation from your own people there and then. And the other points I'd make is, nothing more exciting than having recorded a good set on a show like that in May, knowing it's going to go out in a few months' time. You can barely control your excitement, but you're planning a tour. But the point being, once that goes out, my favourite memories, then I was a real comedian, because before that, if you're giving out flyers for your promotions, black people might take them. Suddenly, when you've been on TV, we didn't know so much funny from time, so much funny. So being on TV, everybody's actually, you have to be talented enough to get into those programmes, but the TV gives you the validation, and some people think, oh, you must be good, you're on telly.
Sorry, I just want to mention one other sketch that was done, and we were all in Africa, and we were in our beautiful garbs and stuff, and then the man brings a thing he's saying about, and it says, oh, it's going to be all this lovely stuff, you get to travel for free, you get to get over the thing, and then non-stop work, yeah, absolutely brilliant, you should know because he wrote it, and then you lift it up and I go, this is just too good to be true, and you lift it up, and then at the back you see the slave ship, and it was, because people were laughing, then you pick it up like this one, and that was one of those moments. I love those moments when people are laughing, they don't want to laugh anymore because it's got really serious.
Sketch has got teeth.
Wow, we could talk all night, but we have to wrap up if that's what we have to do. But we're all delighted that you could join us. And audience, please join the final round of applause, please.
Without the audience, it wouldn't be anything. That's what's important.
So we also thank the Broadway Media Centre and Sophia for putting this on, please. Well, thank you. Round of applause, please.